Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Melissa Longo. As a chiropractor, I believe we have the profound ability to impact our communities and people's health on a global level, while also enjoying rich and rewarding personal lives and giving attention to the things that matter to us. Each week, you'll hear an inspiring conversation to give you ideas and insights to rock your practice, pursue your passions, find more connection and meaning in your life, and create a life and business that works for you. Hey there, Rockstar Doctor listeners. I'm thrilled to have a great conversation. I know it will be a great conversation with Dr. Danielle Finden. I've been watching some of the things she's been up to, and I have some of my own questions for her about, as a female practitioner, how to protect my body, because I know that I've had some injuries. And one of the many things she's done within chiropractic is created a training manual or a system for female docs to protect their body. So I definitely want to talk about that. But without further ado, Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am so excited to be part of this. Longtime listener, first time caller.
Well, it's great to have you here. Now, before we get into it, why don't you just give everyone a little snapshot? Some people don't know who you are, don't know what you're up to. What's Dr. Danielle up to these days? Where do you practice? Your kids? What other projects do you have going on?
Yeah, okay. So I've been in practice for 10 years. We just had our birthday, our 10-year birthday of our practice. And I have two little kiddos, two boys. They're 3 and 6. And I've got 2 associates in my practice. I practice in St. Paul, Minnesota in the States. And we have a satellite office across the river within a prenatal yoga studio. Our focus is very prenatal, postpartum pediatrics in our office, though it didn't exactly start out that way. That's sort of morphed into that as we grow and change and evolve in our practice desires. And so, yeah, we function very much as a team here. So when I say we, you might hear me say we a lot. Mm-hmm. We have a very sort of like we mindset here. We are a team. We all function together. So, I wrote a chiropractic technique manual specifically from the petite practitioner's perspective. It's the only chiropractic textbook on technique that has been written solely by a female. When I was in school, we didn't have any female instructors for technique while I was in school. And I'm a pretty small female doc, and I knew that I was going to need to make some modifications or some changes to the things that I had learned in school in order for me to be successful in my career long term. I love being a chiropractor. I absolutely love being a chiropractor. This is not I'll do it until I can retire. This isn't a means to an end for me. This is part of who I am to my core. And so I fully plan to practice, as far into my, 70s, 80s, 90s, as long as I can. And I don't want to be limited by injuries. So I had an intern that actually inspired me to write a book just from the things that I was teaching her being here. And that kind of starts it off anyhow.
Yeah. And so many things to jump off with there, but did you have the dream of having multiple practices and associates right from the beginning? I mean, it sounds like you've got a huge heart for chiropractic and you love what you do. And like many of us want to practice forever and don't want to retire because we love what we do. But was that your vision at the beginning of your chiropractic journey?
What is so funny is no, the short answer is no. No, when I was in chiropractic school, I was working for a chiropractor as a CA, and I had worked there for 10 years. And I just thought, yep, I'll work for them. I'll be an associate, and I'll just kind of have my happy little, my life of I'll be do my chiropractic thing, punch the clock, and then go home to my family. And it just feels safe and secure. If you would have told me at that time when I was in school that this is where I would be today, I would absolutely not have believed you. In fact, in one of the business classes that we had in school, which is a little laughable. I mean, I think many of us can relate to the fact that what you're taught about being an entrepreneur and owning your own practice when you're in school is really a bit of a joke or a slap in the face, because you're taught how to, at least the school I went to, you're taught to be an excellent clinician, but you're not taught anything about how to be an entrepreneur or run a business.
No.
And the person teaching our business class had some methods that I really did not agree with. And I could not bite my tongue for very long before I stood up to him in front of our entire class more than on one occasion. And, he basically told me that if I didn't follow the things that he was saying, that I would not be successful. And at that time, I fully passionately believed, and I said to him in front of my entire class of peers, I said, I would rather be homeless and living in a tent and still have integrity in what I'm doing every day than to make a bunch of money being a chiropractor. Because to me, it's being a chiropractor that's more important, and not having a big practice with a booming patient base and a waiting list and, and having multiple associates and team members to manage. That, I mean, honestly, people that have been there or gotten to that level, you realize that my passion is being a chiropractor, being a clinician, patient care. That's ultimately my favorite, is being in the room one-on-one with a patient. And when your practice grows and morphs into, something larger to serve your community at the capacity that, you really want to keep helping as many people as possible, then you kind of have to switch roles a little bit and take some time to step out of patient care in order to really manage employees, manage a practice, and run a business. And so I absolutely did not think that was where I was going to be, but here we are, and I'm loving it, and I'm still growing and learning as we go, and things are morphing and evolving, every month here. So
yeah,
exciting.
It's how life evolves, right? I mean, we sometimes have these grand plans, and in life, I always say, when one of my mentoring clients, it always comes, I'm like, life happens while you're busy making other plans. You think things are going to go one way, and then all of a sudden, you have an experience, which sounds like you had an experience where it just went, you know what, I love clinical care, but I want to expand and grow. And in order to do that, I need to start expanding my role within the business, right? And life keeps going and brings us these new opportunities to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, sometimes it's the universe has a bigger plan for you, and things maybe fall into your lap, or opportunities present themselves that become something that you say, yeah, let's go for it. Let's do it.
And so when you've had opportunities where, has it been challenging for you or scary to embrace that side of your business and bringing on new people or expanding to a satellite office? Like, so many times people are limited by their fear, right? Or fear of change, or fear of taking the next step. Have you had that experience personally? And if so, how have you overcome it?
I have a bit. By personality, I'm very much a go-getter, but I am certainly not an early adopter of anything. So I do really analyze and make sure that the next move is going to be the right move. I'm not a knee-jerk reaction, that sounds great, let's do it kind of person. I was presented with an opportunity to purchase a second practice. Long story short, it was a doc that I'd done multiple practice relief stints for because of her own injuries from what she had sustained of just being a chiropractor for a long time. And she had both of her hips replaced, both of her knees replaced, an ankle replacement. I mean, it was, this poor woman had really been through the ringer, and I was providing practice relief for her when she was out on all these medical leaves. And then she tragically was involved in a car accident that left her completely disabled and unable to practice. And she wanted me to buy her practice, and I really didn't want to buy her practice. And the longer I said no and really just tried to focus in on what I had in front of me, it kept coming back. And finally, it got to the point where it just was something that I had to say yes to. And so I wound up flipping that practice and selling it to a classmate within 11 months, because then I was pregnant with my second child and publishing a book. And there was just so much happening all at once that, when my intern had said to me, you should write a book, I thought, I'm just back from maternity leave with my first child. That's ridiculous. I don't have time to write a book, but so I think I tried to say no to a lot of things. And maybe that's a bit of fear coming in, fear that I wasn't going to be able to be the mom that I wanted. And it was an excuse, honestly, to say, well, I'm a new mom to an infant. I don't have time to write a book. Well, I found the time, and I made sure that I was still able to show up as the mom that I wanted to be to my infant, and to show up as the doc in practice that I wanted to be, and show up as the wife I wanted to be. So when I was sort of presented with opportunities or asked to do things that my gut reaction was to say no, I really had to examine, why am I saying no? And if it's because I'm afraid of not being able to show up the way that I want to, then you really have to evaluate, is this opportunity really going to inhibit me from being able to do the things that I want to do? Is it in line with, who I am and where I'm going as a person and in my career? Because there certainly have been opportunities that I have had a knee-jerk reaction to say yes to, but then also examined, maybe this isn't what's really right for me, and maybe this isn't what is best in line for where my career trajectory is and my path on my personal growth and who I want to be. So
Yeah, so when you talked about, you had your kids and you had all that stuff going on and you were trying to make it all work and you just did, how did you make it work? Like, so many docs are listening to that probably going, how the heck? That's a lot of things happening at one time. And even for docs who are listening and maybe just have a practice, and not just, but are running their practice and being parents, that can still be really tough to manage those two roles sometimes. So what helped you the most when you were super busy and trying to be a new mom and run your businesses?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is tough. And like I said, that was part of it for me, was the knee-jerk reaction to say no, because I wanted to be able to show up as the mom and as the wife and as the chiropractor. And all the other roles, I needed to still have some sense of self, and will I have time to exercise, and will I have time to, go out on dates with my husband. And for me, the big key and the piece that I had to sort of learn on my own, which now is sort of laughable because I think it's the more you delve into trying to go through some self-growth, people talk about time blocking your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly became the person that if it is not on my schedule, it does not happen. And so I just had to write everything on my schedule that, okay, we scheduled date nights. I scheduled one-on-one time with my kids. I scheduled exercise time for myself. I scheduled time to write the book. I scheduled, my scheduled time for patients. I scheduled my administrative time when I was doing things to run the business that was not involved in patient care. It's all on a time blocked schedule for me. And that really rules me. And to be totally transparent and openly admit, I mean, even this morning, I struggle a little bit with it sometimes, where my kids are still asleep and my husband has already, left for work, and my alarm goes off to say, I'm supposed to be getting up and going to the gym to exercise this morning, but it's rainy and it's chilly here. And I would really like to just stay in bed while I can because my kids are still asleep, but it was on my schedule to get up and go to the gym. So that's what I did. If it wouldn't have been written down on my calendar, I would have chosen to stay in bed. And that's just what works for me. I know that, for some people, there's, different tips and tricks that they use, but for me, it's got to be scheduled. And then, knowing the piece of, okay, well, then when I'm with my patients, I can 100% focus on my patients because I know that I have time scheduled either earlier in the day before I came in or tomorrow, that I have time scheduled one-on-one to spend time with my kids. And that is not distracted 100% quality time where I'm perfectly engaged with them, because I know that it's on the schedule, that this is the chunk of time that I've set to be 100% focused and engaged on spending time with my kids. I turn my phone off. I have no distractions. And because I have it scheduled, I think I'm able to task switch a little bit better. My husband knows and understands that, this is my time for work. This is my time for, fitness. This is my time with the kids. And then guess what, honey, you get scheduled time too. And, then there's family time. And so having that time pre-planned really helps me be able to focus 100% on what's in front of me in that given moment, because I know in the back of my mind that I don't feel like I'm balancing things all the time. I'm sort of picking up one ball while I set all the others down. And then you set down that ball to pick up another one. That's sort of in my visualization of what's happening. I'm not trying to juggle all the balls. I'm not trying to keep everything up in the air, because you're going to drop a ball for sure. If you just gently set them down and pick them up one at a time, then each one gets their own proper attention, as opposed to it hits your hand for a second before you toss it back up in the air and everything just feels like you're constantly scrambling.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've got some pretty good rituals for yourself that help you transition from Dr. Danielle to Dr. Mom.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I have a short commute, and so I have to be sort of a master of task switching to go from, okay, I'm in doctor mode, I'm doing patient care, and then for the last 15 minutes that I'm in the office, I'm checking in with my staff, I'm checking in with my other team members to say, what do you need from me? How did your day go? Anything that I need to know before I head out. And then in the car ride home it's less than 10 minutes, but that's the time that I'm listening to podcasts or listening to music so that I can be sort of calming down from my day. And I know that as soon as I walk in the door, then I'm putting on this is family mode, this is my mom hat goes on. And it helps that my kids are little. And as soon as they hear my footsteps coming up to the door, they literally drop whatever they're doing and come running to the door to give me a big hug. And, I know that, Melissa, your kids are older, so maybe it won't be
Yeah.
quite the same when they're, teenagers, but
No,
that's where we're at right
I
now.
think it all starts. I mean, I've said this to so many parents, like, how you're raising your children when they're young, it makes a huge difference in what they're like as teenagers. I don't have any complaints with my teenagers. They're really awesome kids. I mean, I think like any family unit, you're going to have times when, you don't get along, or you have, they still are messy at times, and I have to remind them about things and, take responsibility for things. But overall, I think because I was able to craft my business life when they were younger, to be the kind of mom I wanted to be and to stay connected, and even still to this day, to still be able to shift my afternoon hours if I need to catch a football game, that makes a difference in how our relationship continues to be nurtured. And also it makes me feel good as a mom, right? It helps me remind myself that I'm not just Dr. Melissa, this, chiropractor who's successful in her business, but also Melissa who's successful, feeling successful as a mom. And I think that's really something that we've tried to get through with this show, is that we all have these own, just like you talked about, who you are, and scheduling your time works really well. We need to also know what moves us and what defines success for us as individuals, right? And what that might look like for Dr. Danielle might be different than Dr. Joe or Dr. Billy or Dr. Dave or Dr. Sarah, right? And it's that self-discovery piece that I think is the key to a lot of our joy in life and practice. So for you, would you say that your definition of success has changed over your 10 years in practice? Or I know you're not living exactly the life and practice you initially thought you would be, because you've already shared that, but would you say that what it means for you to feel successful in life and business has evolved?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you would have asked me what my idea of success was 10 years ago, it was very different. And, quite honestly, what my idea of success is going to look like 10 years from now is going to be very different than what it looks like right now, I'm sure. It's pretty fluid. So my version of success right now is, making sure that I'm present in the moment with my patients, being actively engaged with my kids, and knowing that, like I mentioned, right now, it's the quality time that I spend with my kids is, while they're little, is very different than it's going to be 10 years from now. And that's honestly part of why I became a chiropractor, is knowing that I'm the master of my own schedule. So just like you said, when those kids are older and they're participating in after school activities or sports, and I say it's really important to me to be able to go to my son's track meet or his hockey game or whatever his chosen sport might be, that I can block my schedule and be there. And so the success is, again, it's not this great balancing act, but it's what can I do to make sure that success isn't just I'm making money in my business, I have a profitable practice. Success to me is what kind of a mom are you? What kind of a wife are you? What kind of a sister are you? What kind of a friend are you? And making sure that you're really pouring into yourself first so that you can show up in all of the ways that you want to for all of the people that are demanding things from you, and your patients included. So, I feel like that's maybe my least fluid part of success, is that at the core of all of it, I know that I really need to be pouring into me so that I can let that overflow into all of the other avenues that I want to be showing up properly.
So when you say
And
pouring into you, as far as your self-care or your emotional well-being?
all of it. So yeah, making sure that, like I said, I schedule my, time for exercise. I schedule social time. I schedule decompression time. just things for me to make sure that I can be giving myself the best that I have to give instead of just always giving everything to everybody else. And the only reason that I do that now is because I've certainly made my mistakes in the past. And I'm sure that there are many listeners that might be sort of in that place where they're feeling a little burnt out. They're feeling a little bit like, how do I balance it all? They might be feeling, a little bit of, well, I give so much to my kids and I give so much to my practice and running my business that I don't have time to go on dates with my husband. But, I fully plan on my husband still being my husband 20 years from now when I'm still running a practice, but my kids are out of the house. And, if I haven't given him the time of day now, what's going to happen 20 years from now when I expect him to just be waiting in the wings, And same thing with your kids. Like you said, the amount of time that you put into spending time with your kids when they're little sets the framework for your relationship with them as teenagers and as young adults. But in order for me to be able to do those things, I can't just be giving 100% of myself all of the time and have nothing left over for me as a person, because otherwise I get completely depleted and I really do have nothing left to give. And then nobody's getting the best of me, including myself.
No. And I feel like that's something that we all stress so much, but I wonder if it's something that we would have stressed, earlier in practice. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's something I think in hindsight, we can all be like, oh yeah, I would never do that again. But sometimes you learn through experience is the only way, right? Is there anything that you would do differently if you were to reverse 10 years and redo practice life?
Yeah, I'm very big on like having no regrets and using everything as a learning experience to say that I am the person today because of who I was yesterday, right? But if I were given the opportunity to, like, if I knew then what I know now, what would I do differently? And I think that there's a little bit of, there was the hustle to do things that you thought were your definition of success, but maybe it wasn't really your definition of success. And so you're doing things because other people told you it was a good idea or it was successful for other people, going to health fairs and setting up a booth where there's, a community event. And like that just for some people, that's very successful. And for me, it was not. And I would say really trying to imagine what are the things that resonate with you the most and really focusing on that and not letting somebody else's idea of what success is or what practice building is taint your idea of what you want.
Yeah, I think that is consistent for so many of us, right? It's like just, and I love that I'm hearing this message more and more in so many avenues within chiropractic and also in other areas, like really getting clear on who you are and being yourself. Because, I always say it's the fastest way to an unhappy life is trying to be someone you're not and trying to live, someone else's practice ideals or their rituals with their kids or whatever it is, sports. I mean, you've got to find out what makes you feel like your best self and what excites you and honor who you are and your personality and grow a practice that resonates with that too, right? I know that talking to Dr. Cheryl Schmidt on the show, she self-described like, look, we're introverts. So how they've grown their practice has been very different. It hasn't been at public screenings and big talks. It's been consistent, steady efforts one-on-one within their practice. So figuring out who you are and doing that, turning up the volume on that is what I'd recommend as well.
I think that there's
Go ahead.
There's a lot of people that, they every year that a birthday goes by, I've got a birthday coming up and people say, well, how old are you going to be? And I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I don't want to figure out the math because it really isn't important what the number is. Really what's important for me to know is that the next year of my life is for sure going to be the best yet. And I think there's some people where they think, like, oh, 23, that was my favorite. Like no responsibilities, but I was done with college or, just people that are sort of reminiscing in the past. And for me that, I think I don't want to go back to that person because I know so much more about who I am as a person. I feel so much more comfortable with who I am and who I've become. But yet I still know that the best is really yet to come, right? So
Now, so with you, would you say that you are inspired by a certain program, mentorship you've had, a day-to-day in your practice, any experiences that you've had? Like, what keeps you so fired up and knowing that you want to be practicing, 20 years from now still?
I think for me, it's the intrinsic motivator of just always trying to better myself and knowing that I'm a work in progress, and so is everyone else that you meet. And so I really am trying to understand and expand upon all of my knowledge. There's people ahead of me on their journey for me to learn from, and there are people maybe not quite to the point that I've reached in their own personal journeys that I can extend a hand out to help them along on their journey so that I can pass some knowledge down to them. So knowing that I still have so much to learn keeps me pursuing more. Learning never ends. And, in order for me to keep my fire lit as long as possible, I think that, if you stop learning, you stop growing, and then you may as well just stop being.
Do you have that on your schedule? Do you have learning time booked in for yourself?
I do, yep.
Yeah, excellent.
I do.
Excellent.
And I know that in this point in my life, I have a very long reading list of books that I want to read, but I won't allow a limiting a belief of I don't have time to sit down and read a book. It's true that I may not have time to, with all the other things I'm trying to manage, I may not have time to sit down and read a book that I can tangibly hold in my hands. But if I'm, on an airplane ride or, for 10 minutes here or there, can I check, on our mobile devices, can you get on Kindle and read for 10 minutes? Or can I listen to an audio book version? The universe has so much information available at our fingertips now, which is amazing to me. And so there really is no excuse to not continue that learning and that growth.
No, I've been saying the same thing this week. I'm like, I love technology, and I think that we definitely need to be careful with regards to, how being consumed by it. But I think it makes our lives a whole lot easier. It allows us to be connected to people in huge ways. And I think if you can moderate yourself and find out how it fits your life most effectively, it can certainly be an asset and not a detriment.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to know a little bit more about the program that you're doing for associates, because it's something that I'm an advocate of. I think associate positions are fantastic for some docs based on their personality and their life goals. And yet some docs are not sure that's the right thing for them. So tell us a little bit more about what you've got going on there.
Yeah, I mentioned that I've got 2 associates here in my practice, and I know that there seems to be a negative connotation within the field of chiropractors eat their young, meaning that we just eat up these associates. We just use them in order to make us more money. And associates then, are very transient, and they are here just to get their feet wet in being a clinician before they can, have the courage to start their own practice. And I just felt like there's got to be a better way. I don't feel like, being an associate is a bad thing. There are some people that they don't want to be an entrepreneur. They know that juggling all of the different things and wearing all of the different hats is just not their forte. And they do love the patient care piece. And so they want to be an associate, and it's not a just be an associate. It's you can really be very successful at that if you can really focus on that, but you need the right doc that's going to really appreciate you and give you the training and the support that you really desire and you deserve. And so, the last associate that I hired, she had been in her own private practice for 9 years and just felt like a solitary island. She was practicing in a big urban area and even in a co-op style independent contractor, 3 different people all sharing one office space. But even in that scenario, she felt very alone and very isolated. She didn't feel very supported. And so hiring someone that had been, in their own practice as a business owner for 9 years to say, let's do this together. Let's be part of a team. And for her to become an associate, we generated an onboarding process for her that I think a lot of associates are just sort of hired, and maybe you shadow the doc for a period of time, and you might chat and go out to lunch a couple of times, but that might be the extent of it. And there isn't anything systematized that is really helping that associate understand the practice and how it runs and understand themselves and how they fit into that model. And so it really is focused in on that person's personal development and then professional development, and how each module is broken down into a personal development and a professional development piece that complement each other. And then there's a follow-up written instruction, homework style sort of exercise for them to work on. And this is something that is meant for the hiring doc to sort of suggest that their associates go through, but it is meant to be an active role between the two of them, open for discussion. But I know that a lot of chiropractors feel like, well, I'm hiring an associate because I'm so busy. I don't have time to really be meeting with them on a lengthy basis every week. And so they can watch the video modules on their own time, and then they can do the homework, and they can do an email discussion back and forth with their doc, or they can sit down and do lunch, or, it really is meant to have that associate understand how their own personal growth is going to help them fit into the practice much better, so that they really can be like, we're going from a me to a we. This is my practice. No, this is our practice now. We're very team-based.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be, and I think it's happening slightly, but I think there needs to be a resurgence of looking at different practice options for people. It's for so many people based on their personality, and you said it, right? Like, some people don't want to manage a whole business. They know that they really excel at clinical stuff, and they want to walk in, adjust, and walk out. They don't want to manage a team, or they don't have the interest in doing that. And then there's other docs who thrive on that, and they're really gifted in bringing people together, in managing a business, and perhaps they're more suited for that. So I think, as we talked about so much in this show, like, it's really important to get to know yourself and your skills, and then find your role in chiropractic, and figure out the how you're going to express yourself within practice based on those criteria. Because being a solo practitioner is not for everyone. And I even know docs who have, they are the primary doc, they have associates, and they want to jump into the associate role and not have to manage as much. So I think that whole idea that, the associate is like you're on your way to another practice, or you are, it's not the real deal, is really full of loopholes. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I would really love to see that change so that people can really, embrace that. And when we look at other professions, I mean, there certainly are more group style practices in every other profession that we see. And so what are they doing differently? What do they know that we don't know, that as chiropractors we feel like we all need to, wear a badge of honor that says I can do this on my own, and even if it means you're really struggling, there's no shame in doing it as a team. And it's not I'm just an associate, I don't own my own practice. I mean, my associates have it made. They both have 3-day weekends every week, and we are all supporting each other so that everybody can work part-time, but make a decent, living doing what we love and have the time to do the things that we really want to do. But I mean, the way that my practice has grown, if I didn't have associates, I would be working more than 60 hours a week. And that isn't how I want to show up for my family. Right. And so it's really great that we can, support each other so that then they don't feel that way either. Right.
Yeah. And so how can docs learn more about the program and what you're offering? Because we can definitely drop some links to that in the show notes, listeners. But it is an online program, right, Danielle? So
yes,
they can connect with you and find out more.
Yes. So all of the, my speaking engagements, information about the book, information about the Associate Academy is all on my website, www.howtoadjust.com. And you can register for Associate Academy there. You can, buy the book there. You can get a little bit more information about both of those things, and a little bit more information about me there as well.
Right. Well, I certainly appreciate your time today. It's been great connecting with you finally. I know we've tried to set this up a few times, so I'm glad that it finally happened. And thanks so much for what you're doing for chiropractors, and sharing your message, and for changing people's lives in your community as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Melissa. I have really enjoyed speaking with you and getting to know you a little bit better as well.
Thanks for being here today. If you like this show, please share it with another chiropractor and connect them with this message. We are always better off together than we are alone. If you haven't yet subscribed, head on over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes, and don't forget to rate and review the show while you're there. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook, and find out more about today's guests and all things Rockstar Doctor Life by clicking in those show notes. See you next time.